Hello everyone. I would like to talk about today some important things that are pointing to subtler movements in your consideration. So what I mean by that is that man has an ability to consider physicality, and so his world is presented to him. However, in your subtler planes, this physicality can shift and navigate. Now, there are two intermediaries that have shown themselves, and these intermediaries are branches of study where you, as a point of existential attention, need to, in a sense, dissolve into understanding. So your individuality needs to go and see its collectivity, and in a sense, be its collectivity, and that is its greatest understanding of life. So, the two intermediaries are light and sound, and there's a technology that I know there is between these that is allowing man to work in a subtler realms, a technology which are external technologies will in a sense remember once they are conscious of, and so once we have brought that form of reality into place. You see, there are some leaders, and you think that the governance of your reality or the government can control you, or your boss can control you, or a dictator can control you, or some being can control you. It is not like that. If you see a system that is small and you know yourself to be big, you will feel a bit impractical. You'll feel as if you're not adequate, you're not complete. And so to be complete means that which is so certain in the knowing, for example, you feel that you know, like this bench in the park is in front of you. That is a sense of certainty. That is a sense of knowing. Now, if you had that same sense of certainty that you have that the bench is here, that bench was not here, there would come these, in a sense, profound, deep existential questions within you, which will then show you that the way you are valuing things in your life is not as important as the way you're really observing it. Because, or how would I say it? It is very important to be aware of the observer in this reality, because the observer is beyond form. And so that is when the character in the story begins to, in a sense, dissolve into the storyteller. Experience of the storyteller, which is the collective consciousness. Now, light and geometry can be playful with you. For example, the symbol of an inverted triangle came to me, and it was very fascinating because I approached it as simple geometry. So imagine as if you've been to school and you've read simple math textbooks on geometry and whatnot, and suddenly in your dream, in your abstract realms, in your subtle planes, you've had a geometric expression. So when you really observe geometric expression, you see that by drawing it in physicality, or in a sense, you observing how shape is present in your reality, you get an understanding of the movement of that shape as if that shape has become your vehicle. And so you will see that in your consideration, your highest peak of consideration is how you look at light before you can't see anymore, because you are the light. So in a sense, your sensitivity to reality shows how much allowance you're giving yourself to even perceive a greater reality. So you must be aware of your life. Be aware and be very self-aware. Be present within the moment, and take that very peaceful walk, perhaps by a stream. I really recommend that a very awesome and very great spot is to go find a rock between a stream and simply sit between there and observe. Observe how you find life to be formed and how information enters your observance, And even practice saying mantras or say sounds that, in a sense, illuminate you by showing you where that sound is originating from, or in how many, in a sense, dimensions it's being present. So humanity's engagement in multidimensionality is not that he suddenly wears glasses and these glasses are showing him a multidimensional reality. It's actually him observing the different screens that he has considered to be image. So we want to go beyond the mechanical realization by seeing that our real lives are not things that are even shaped, but they are an awareness to shape. Do you recognize this? There's a profundity here. There's an unknown aspect to how you view things that is the allowance of your greater vision. Recognize this. And you will see that geometry and sound and anything that you are seeing or observing as a being in your sense of humanity in a sense, shifts. And so you begin being more playful. So your subtler realms of thought, your inner space, or that third eye consideration that many people have, or your space of your intuition, or however you conceive it for yourself, it is a space where you are an awareness that is so aware it is allowing life to happen as it is. It is a very peak state of awareness where you see after you have reached the peak, the only way up to the limitless sky is to learn from clouds, and that is to fade. And so that is actually the step above the peak. I have at times gone through walks, but in my subtler sense of awareness, in other words, my awareness to my thoughts, I don't acknowledge them though as thoughts though. I don't have really any acknowledgement of them. I just allow myself to see how they are apparent. So, how I can say this is that when I have been walking in parks, sometimes I have seen random geometry present itself in the abstracts of my mind and begin moving and fluctuating on its own. And it's as if it is my sensitivity to my subtler plane that is allowing that to happen. So you see, when you're trying to explore your multidimensional nature, when you really want to see if you are more than just physical, you have to acknowledge reality. And when you acknowledge reality, it's up to your sincerity and honesty in where you will be led to dissolve into your collective awareness. So collective consciousness means that your individuality has to allow itself to be observed with all that is. So you no longer try to individualize, you no longer try to say anything or do anything, but you're aware of all that is being done. And that is very powerful. Because once the clouds fade, the limitless sky is the ability, or in a sense, the possibility of all conception. You will see that your multidimensionality will come into your vision as if you are having remembrances and certainties from other aspects of this greater mind. So if your sense of space and time shift, you will see that the awareness to that sense of change or shift, in other words, going through your experience, is going to give you a profound understanding of reality, because it is showing you that this thing that was before normally real for you is now not real. So you don't really need substances, and many people are taking it, but what you need is an attention to your existence. You have to have a sincere, honest intention. You have to be like, I'm alive, and so I want to know what this life is. And when you ask that question, life will come to you, and life will come to you, and you will see that it's as if there's no door that you need to open, but you simply need to be where you are. Because when you chase the butterfly, you will feel you're one step behind, you're off from your intuition. But when you sit down and in the stillness and absolute knowing and your dissolution into the present moment, where even the noise of your breath has even dissolved into silence, then you become life's allowance to be anything. So it's a very profound awareness to expression, simply. Multidimensionality is very significant and relevant to the life that you're living now. In other words, if you think that your spirituality is not relevant to your physicality, you are putting yourself in certain dynamics of thought, which are made of dualistic bricks. And so the only hammer you need is, you either need a hammer to break all your ideologies, and that becomes very complex and it's unnecessary, and you really can't actually be that successful, because you'll get tired and you'll stop using the hammer because the bricks are so infinite. But you will suddenly see that the best way to get out of that condition is by not trying to get out of it, but realizing that you're stepping out of one room to be present in a new room of reality. So at first, the teachings that I revealed, the treasures that I revealed within myself, was that we are not just in one space, we're in many spaces, because man's mind has an ability to conceive. It is co-creative in the sense that it is even externalizing. So it's as if there's one intelligence extended into two arms, and the two arms are in a sense holding each other's, in a sense, the hands are kept together as simple as you will see that there's, guys, some things, ideas are really showing you its value. Other things, you will see that experientially you know. So if you've had orange juice and suddenly out of nowhere someone comes and talks about orange juice, you can act as if you don't know or you've never heard of it, but you know orange juice. And that is the clarity you need, you know, especially when the air hostess asks you, stewardess asks you for what drink do you want when you're on the plane. So be very observant, and in your firmest communication, observe your loose nature to then be able to confront more. Light and sound and everything that you see will become significant because it would constantly dissolve and fluctuate into showing you more. So what that means is that if I've kept a mirror in front of my face, what happens through this deep observance of a sense of multidimensionality is like I'm throwing the mirror from my right hand to my left. Constantly there's this flow in how reality is self-reflective but also changing with its own direction. And light will become profound. You will simply walk and you will see that triangle, square, shape, all geometry will be playful with you because your mind is being playful to its presence. So the presence is emanating how it should be. So you will see that your teachings and your introductions to multidimensionality are a natural phenomenon. So you will embrace nature in increasing your consciousness by seeing that it's something that is not bound by hierarchy. So do not think that you're someone to even say something to someone. Because what you are is an absorption of all that you're aware in the moment and how that is self-aware. So the intensity of your self-awareness suggests who you are. Because you can be here and you might not be dead, but if you're not aware of where you are, it's as if you're dead in some way. It's as if you're not aware of the greater rooms you're in. You're not aware of the palace of the mind, in which each aspect, each moment of your experience is a profound calling of new co-creative realities. It is very powerful. It's as if we thought that we had to be creative, but it's as if creativity is simply as clear as the ray of the sun. It's just there. It's simply your existential allowance that is not letting you just accept it with an individual sense of association. Collectively, you have accepted because there's no disagreement. The collective knowing, there's no disagreement. So what you will see that if you are too convinced by your individuality and you are really bothered by it, for example, you don't like your childhood or your conditioning, or some aspects of your life have bothered you, or some aspects of life have bothered you. In other words, you've gone through suffering. Even the Buddha acknowledged suffering, you know. So if you've gone through that, you will see that how you get out of limitation is to first observe why it's limiting you. And so before you help anyone else, help yourself by seeing who you are. And then you will see that there are some ideas which you're associating that are not really you. They're just simply how you reacted to a situation in your past, and you're keeping that ideology alive by thinking you're still in that situation. So self-observance requires a sense of aligning the mind. Think of the gentleness of the Zen master's stick as it is in a very mindful way being moved in the sand, you know, of the Zen garden. You will simply see that there is peace present in your chaos, and that peace is the guiding factor. So are you a peaceful being? And if a part of you is like, yeah, then why are you worried about all the pieces? Don't worry about what will break. Because what will break is irrelevant to you when your relevance is of a reality that is really where you are. So what that means is that if someone pushes me out of a car where I'm, for example, my life is heading somewhere, suddenly I go into a different dynamic or a different state of being, I know where my home is. So I will just walk home. So simply in life, when you're in positions where you can't, in a sense, you feel the suffering is too much, that is the moment where you are required to observe that suffering. So you still as a being have not understood that you must observe yourself to allow yourself. So there will never be a sense of peace if there is an aspect of you that can never see a peaceful world. And so man must teach himself through silence and stillness by allowing thought, like the ripples of a pond, to settle down. And then he will get a very clear existential clarity. And with that existential clarity, the geometry will move on its own. You will see that shapes have intelligence. They are alive because you are the emanation of life. Because where you are, life is significant. And so a machine can never be a machine in a holographic reality, but only kept there by an eye that is not looking somewhere else, or not deciding to look more holistically. An integrative view is a bridge to all worlds. And so that integrative view, it is a formless one. Because if you individualize something, you have conceived it individual. So it can never go out of its conception unless it was never conceived. So that is how the image is. In other words, if it's in the video, it'll be in the projector. It'll just be projected out of the projector. So you cannot change the projector, but you can get the awareness of the projection. And so that is what man can do, because you're physically involved, and so you feel very close to that tree that is present in your reality. And you see the tree is silent, it is still, and it is aware, it is present. And it is still continuing its growth. So the lesson I learned is that in the playfulness of acknowledging the different aspects of our spectrum and in general duality, you will find a peaceful observance that is not action-oriented, but is observance-oriented. And because it is observance-oriented, it is not shaped to then be solidified into experience. In other words, it's as if your liquid bodies are more aware of the gas state than the solid state. And so you're transitioning into your knowing. Because as a solid, it's very hard for you from your materiality, from your solidity, to understand gas right away, unless you go back to your past. So for example, some people have said there is the path of self-remembrance. So you, in other words, you're in the solid state, let's say, and so you suddenly see how from gas you turned into liquid and then into solid, or whatever cycle of change you went through, So in other words, your existential alchemy is that one aspect of you can remember itself to have always been there, and one aspect of you can know itself to be there. So in other words, there is a path of hope and faith and climbing the ladder and knowing that there's a destination on the ladder, which is many traditions and many practices. Other schools have also set another path, which is self-remembrance. So you, in a sense, stop doing anything and you, in a sense, see where you are. And by seeing where you are seeing, wow, I have the potential for a liquefied nature. Oh my God, the nature of my mind is empty because in my gas state of being, there is nothing. Nothing of relevance to shape, to form. So man's essence is simply the water. And this is a very simple metaphor that is showing our multidimensionality. And now think, man's self-awareness, what Mr. Within is suggesting, that man is present in all these three dynamics, in all these three states. So it's not just three, it's many states of being, but we need to at least acknowledge this. So when we teach science, like this concept to kids in school, then we must also explain the profundity it can suggest. So inspiration occurs by you communicating the vision. What that means is that if you have really understood something clearly, you still have an attitude. So what that means is some people understand or get something clearly, or you have an ability, or you have an abundance where you can help someone, and you're suddenly there, and a part of you is like, hey, I had to climb this ladder. Why should I just tell this guy there's an escalator right there when I found out there's an escalator after I've been up there, right? So many people have the habit of thinking that by not communicating something they know to another, they are going ahead. But actually, you will see that the leaders of man are ones who get the clearest visions of mankind and in the simplest way communicated. So if I communicate something and I intuitively feel it is not clear, I will break it down. I will break down the concepts, and I will even go as deep as using atoms and molecular structure to even suggest the profundity in starlight. Because it is all present. And so the fractal design is very real in your abstract realms, in your subtler planes of acknowledgement. And so there's a joy. There's a very profound joy. Light will play with you. Sound will play with you. Design, shape, form will play with you. The blueprint of this reality will be seen to have always been playful. And once you are playful, you are allowing your collective intelligence, just like an older brother, to guide you to where you must be. Because an older brother it knows that it is taking care of it. So similar to how we find a sense of responsibility for our children, or for example, animals or people that are, let's say, unhealthy, or in a sense, in let's say negative conditions or whatnot, you see that similarly there are greater collective consciousnesses, intelligences and beings and points of existential intelligence that are acknowledging man. They're taking care of it. But man is still its own being. So what that means is that you will get a pet, for example, and your pet will freak out one day. And when your pet freaks out, you will see that it's the one freak out. And you keep saying there's nothing wrong, but the animal's freaking out. And so you see that there are many subtler realms. So you will get a sense of respect of not touching things which you're acknowledging in a sense are not relevant to your reality. So for example, if someone is a policeman, it doesn't mean he gets to do everything he wants, do you know, just because he has that uniform. But at the same time, when he really wants to do the thing that he is made to do for, in other words, he's there to serve and protect, he will do it properly. And so that is when law enforcement does not need to enforce itself, because the people are so certain that the law is simply there. It is a present force it does not need agitation. Sometimes to serve and protect means to allow natural growth, to not get involved. In other words, to serve and protect means that the parent realizes, okay, I am taking care of this environment, of this being, of this life, but at the same time I am giving it space because it has its own reality. So if I am talking to someone of a different culture, if I suddenly begin bashing their reality, if I say, oh, I hate this and I hate this and this, it is a stupid madness. It is like an animal barking. When you begin limiting others by telling them that's what you are, this is what you are. Man deserves better. Human communication is more advanced than that. If you are using language to break others, you are in a sense stabbing yourself, because you are not recognizing where your attention should be in the moment. And it should be so sensitive to how life is present, how that plant is life, how that animal is life, how everything you are seeing is alive as you are. And I hope there will be moments in your life where you will see that you have been thrown into the battlefield, and all reality and opposition and ideal, everything there, if your idea, your sense of ego and self begins to be confronted by its collective in ways where it breaks. And so when life's touch really gets closer to you, you begin to see that your sense of order was false, because the intelligence of the beingness of a greater command is one that is above the limitation of a separate one. So what that means is that the tip of your finger might think that it's the king of the world, do you know? However, it is the intelligence of the body that moves it. So in other words, the cell can think it has free will, but in a sense it is the tissue that is giving it an existence to even think it has free will. So we must be observant of existence and allow these dimensions to naturally manifest to us. In other words, simply as if you're walking into a garden and you're observing every plant, and each plant is an aspect of your existence in a sense of dimension and space of time unique to its own. And so you need to have the sensitivity. For example, sometimes when I go around people, I feel, in other words, I feel their presences, and when I do, I see that it is from an emotional state in which interpretation occurs. So how I feel about someone really suggests how I'm receiving how they are. And how I feel about others is really not just limited to them. It's bound to my experience, how much clutter I have, and how mindful I have been in acknowledging my reality. You take care of physical reality by being observant. And observance is simple, it is present, and it is, in a sense, an ability that is there. And that sense of there is always here. And once all fires have become beacons, you will see that the nature of life is to being always a source that is extending into the distance. So the light that you are is really a multidimensional understanding, and simply man is now the ability, in other words, the ability has been granted. Man has now found the existential permission to develop into acknowledging more than just one reality.